Montreal City Hall, here seen covered with creative scaffolding, is our first stop on the tour. It is located at 275 Rue Notre-Dame Est. From 1852 to 1878, City Council met in the Bon Secours Market, which will be mentioned later. In 1878, they were transferred to this palatial building where Montreal City Hall remains. Though ravaged by a fire in 1922, it was rebuilt following the original architecture plans virtually in their entirety. Today, City Hall sits facing Place Jacques-Cartier along with other important buildings such as the Montreal Courthouse, Municipal Court, and Court of Appeal. It is also worth noting that it was from the balcony of City Hall that French President Charles de Gaulle uttered his famous Vive le Québec libre speech, which sparked the Quebec nationalist movement and brought it to the forefront. Though the quality is weak, here is a quick video of this now famous Montreal event.
J'emporte de cette réunion inouïe de Montréal un souvenir inoubliable. La France entière sait, voit, entend ce qui se passe ici. Et je puis vous dire qu'elle en vaudra mieux. Vive Montréal, vive le Québec. Vive le Québec libre!
On our way to what remains of Montreal's fortifications, we pass Place Vauquelin, which is almost a buffer zone between the old city to the south and the cosmopolitan Montreal to its north. Named for the statue of the French naval officer that adorns it, this square is located to the west of City Hall. In the distance, it overlooks Montreal's Asian Quarter. Another Montreal landmark that can be seen in the distance is the Hydro-Quebec building. Montreal was a walled city from 1722 to 1803. The walls were 18 feet tall, 4 feet wide at the base, and 3 feet wide at the top, made of stone. Garrisons were spread throughout the walls, which surrounded 93 acres of land. The main goal of the fortifications was to defend the city from native attack. As the city grew, both in size and economic importance, the walls became viewed less and less as a necessity. In 1797, citizens groups were asking for the removal of the walls, and the project to take them down began the same year and was completed in 1803. Today, Champ de Mars, behind City Hall, remains the most prominent of the few relics left of Montreal's fortifications. Claude Ramsay was Montreal's 11th governor. His tenure was of 40 years, from 1705 to 1745, at the beginning of which he began constructing his chateau, which now faces City Hall. After the conquest, it became an English government house. Between 1775 and 1776, it was the headquarters of the American Revolutionary Movement that was occupying Montreal while the Americans tried and failed to rally the French Canadians into joining the revolution. The city of Montreal purchased it in 1895 to serve as a historical museum. As we round the corner from the Chateau Ramsay, we approach the statue of Montreal's greatest mayor, Jean Drapeau. Elected in 1954, Jean Drapeau was Montreal's great visionary mayor. He served from 1954 to 1957 and then from 1960 to 1986. In many ways, Drapeau was Montreal's quiet revolution leader. He commissioned the construction of the Montreal subway, cleaned up electoral law, and fought corruption. Moreover, he labored tirelessly at transforming Montreal into an international metropolis. Under his tenure, Montreal hosted the 1967 World's Fair, celebrating Canada's centennial, which drew 50 million visitors, as well as the Montreal Olympic Games. Though many of his grandiose projects indebted Montrealers, Jean Drapeau must be recognized as the man who truly put Montreal on the map. Here are 2 videos connected to these famous projects.
Hey, Gabe, we're supposed to be at City Hall.
We're gonna build it right here.
Oh, yeah, sure. And give wetsuits to all the visitors?
No, on the water.
Hey, come on. We're talking about building something the size of 64 city blocks.
And there's no land left in Montreal.
So, get serious.
Listen, we'll build islands.
How? Dig up Montreal?
They're digging a subway, remember? You take it from there, and you put it here.
12 months and 25 million tons of fill later, St. Helens Island was reshaped and Ile Notre Dame was created.
Come on. We don't want to keep Mayor Drapeau waiting, do we?
Montreal's Expo 67. It would prove to be the most successful World's Fair of the 20th century.
Tom McKee here for CBC Television Sports in the 1976 Olympics. We'll be bringing you coverage of every event every day at the 1976 Games. Thousands of athletes taking part from most of the nations around the world. You'll have an opportunity to see their best against our best. And you can watch it all right here on CBC, your Olympic network.
Located at the top of Place Jacques-Cartier, the Nelson Monument was erected in 1809 after Admiral Nelson defeated Napoleon's army at Trafalgar in 1805. It is the oldest monument in Montreal. It is also somewhat interesting because of the two cannons and reef symbol on its base, which has entered into urban folklore as a reference to Bill 101, Quebec's language law. Place Jacques-Cartier, facing City Hall and next to Chateau Ramsay, was the location of the Montreal College up to 1803, when the college was the victim of a fire. After the fire, Place Jacques-Cartier became home to the Marché Neuf. It ceased to be a public market in the 1960s and became more and more a place for street entertainers. It is also home to the Nelson and Iroquois hotels, built in 1855. Also a key aspect of Place Jacques-Cartier is the Nelson Monument. Saint Amable Street opens up onto Place Jacques-Cartier and is lined with restaurants, and during the summer becomes the place for artists to sell and create their work. We can also find on Saint Amable the former fur warehouses of the Northwest Company, who was strong competition for the Hudson Bay Company until the two merged in 1821. The Notre Dame Basilica, located at 110 Rue Notre Dame Ouest, was built between 1824 and 1829 and is reminiscent of Paris's famous Notre Dame Cathedral. It was built to replace the smaller Notre Dame Church, which was built in the 1670s and would be located in the middle of Notre Dame Street, right in front of the basilica. It remained open throughout the construction of the larger church and was only demolished in 1841. This is an artist's rendering of what the churches would look like during the basilica's construction. Here's a look at the inside of the church. During our walking tour, we came upon an archaeological dig, which is excavating the foundations of the old church, with hopes of finding artifacts from Montreal's history. The New York Life Insurance Building, erected in 1888, was Canada's first skyscraper. Located at 511 Place d'Armes, it was the first building in Canada to use the technique of building metal structure to support the weight of the construction and draping the walls over the skeleton. The Bank of Montreal is Canada's oldest bank, founded in 1817. It was founded out of local merchants' demands for a formalized currency. In 1845, the bank commissioned the design of the Greco-Roman style building. The Saint-Sulpice Seminary is one of Montreal's oldest buildings, dating from the 1680s, though its present shape resembles mostly the 1710 constructions. Built to model the Saint-Sulpice Seminary of Paris, it housed the brothers of this religious order, who arrived in the city in 1657. Though it is currently being renovated, the building had an old clock on one of its roof towers that was built in 1701 and remained the only public timepiece in the city until 1881. Today it is still owned by the Sulpician order. Montreal Stock Exchange, originally known as the Montreal Exchange Coffee House, was established in 1832. For 42 years, trading was done informally until 1874, the date seen here in Roman numerals, when the Montreal Stock Exchange was established under charter. Informally known as the MX Building, it is now located at 800 Victoria Square. The building it occupied from 1903 to 1965 is now the Centaur Theatre.